Hey everybody, thank you for joining us on FareCompare video podcast episode number 59. My name is Rick Cini. I'm the co-founder and CEO here at FareCompare.com.
And I'm Ann McDermott. And now that Halloween is over, we're on to Thanksgiving and Black Friday deals. We'll be talking about that a little bit, and also Cyber Monday, of course, and the winners and losers for Thanksgiving. And we're also going to take a customer question, one of our favorite parts of the show. And Rick, of course, is going to provide a scintillating answer as always. And if anybody else has a question, please send it to customer.service@faircompare.com. Let's go.
I don't know about scintillating, but I'll give her a college try there. We'll give that a shot anyway. So let's chat a little bit about Cyber Monday, Black Friday, a variety of other things that are cooking around that time frame. I know that you're our internal, I'm going to track every sale known to man and every airline known to man deals. Wow. I know these are all flying about: Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Crazy Tuesday, tilt your head back Wednesday. These deals are pretty amazing, and people, I know that we've been working on our strategy for making sure this all gets sorted out for the last 6 weeks or so. It's a big deal.
Yeah, and we, of course, will be tweeting out these things, putting them on Facebook and everything else. But one thing I want to let people know, as I'm sure you know, is that, you know, you can call anything a Black Friday or a Cyber Monday sale, and people will go, let's go get it. But right now, there is an airline offering, for example, New York to Albuquerque, New Mexico, for $94 one way. That airline is also offering New York to San Diego, California, $119 one way. Sacramento to New York, $129. These are very close to your holy grail of what?
$99 each way, coast to coast.
Yeah. So, you know, stuff's out there.
I think your point is that you don't have to wait till Black Friday or Cyber Monday to find a deal out there. If you have some flexibility, and as long as if you're traveling outside of the holiday period, there's still some unbelievably good deals. It's off season, and off season is great if you can get away. You know, you have to have some flexibility, but I agree. Some of those prices I've seen lately are crazy. And some of them are people matching Frontier, Spirit, for example. In some cases, we've seen some of these crazy deals from WOW and Norwegian Airlines, transatlantic airfare that are being matched by the big airlines. I love to see that. I wish we saw that more of that. In fact, I wish we had 6 or 7 more of their airlines all competing for that business.
Yeah. Another thing I want to say about these Black Friday sales, some of the airlines, like last year, it was Spirit and Southwest, they had pre-Black Friday deals. And Black Friday, by the way, is the day after Thanksgiving traditionally, and it is this year, it's November 25th. But so keep your eye open at least like a week before. And also in advance for Cyber Monday, which seems to be less popular these days. That's typically the Monday after Thanksgiving. Right. But, you know, they basically come out with sales when they want. They call them Black Friday. I've never seen a bad one of these sales. They're good, but they're all over the map. And among the people that have offered these deals in the past, and they don't typically tell you, oh, yes, we're going to have a Black Friday sale. They sort of keep it a secret. But we've seen these sales from Air Canada, Alaska, American, Cathay Pacific, Delta, Emirates, Etihad, Frontier, KLM, Southwest, Spirit, Virgin America, and I know there are others. So just, stick around social media during the next couple of weeks.
I thought you were calling out English Premier League jersey sponsorships for a minute. So we'll have to, that's an inside joke here for my Scottish co-founder. So hopefully he'll watch the podcast this time. I agree that these things are, one of those things where you're going to see them, but you're also generally the best thing to do is sign up for alerts on the routes that you're interested in, because they'll pick up those deals as long as they hit the system. The other thing too to mention is we might see some of those flash sales. We'll be noting them whether or not they show up on Twitter or Facebook. Flash sale would only be a few hours in window of time, so you got to be sort of ready for that to occur.
Yeah, you're right. Some of them are 4 hours long, some 5. I mean, that's another thing where it's kind of all over the map,
the reason for that, Ann, is that these airlines have full content agreements with GDSs, which basically power online travel agencies, and they have to have the same pricing as part of these agreements for some of the rates that have been negotiated down for these things. And that's why you see, and part of it is that I think most of those agreements don't cover flash sales of a few hours. So that's why you see some of those flash sales from time to time.
Let's talk about winners and losers when it comes to Thanksgiving. And we are talking about departure cities. Now, our FareCompare team of analysts, which does not include me, did a lot of hard work and found out some interesting stuff.
Yeah, no, the interesting thing is that the winners and losers is not about Chicago and Cleveland, which is now heading into Game 6 as we speak here today, with a huge game tonight in the World Series. The winners and losers on these particular routes for Thanksgiving pricing was an interesting study done internally. We looked at millions of different date departures and buying tickets in certain time ranges, and it turns out there was a couple of actually surprises in here. The winners are places like Minneapolis, St. Paul, Cleveland, Chicago, all those down either from 9 to 15%, Minneapolis being at 15%, Boston and Chicago, Indianapolis being around the 8 to 9% range. And that's a really good price decrease year over year. So that's good news for them. And not so surprising was a couple biggest increases: Philadelphia, Houston. Philadelphia, again, part of the U.S. Airways American merger. Houston, part of the Continental United merger. I was surprised that Dallas and Los Angeles and Miami were all up, but they were up about 4%, which was the overall average, which was up about 3.5 to 4%. So not too much surprising there, and not a lot of change in many cities like Orlando and Washington, D.C.
Now, as you pointed out, these were averages. So
you know how I feel about averages.
Yeah, not too good. So if the individual shopper, say somebody in Minneapolis, may find out, oh, the fare has not gone down 15% over last year. Or I suppose they could find out, oh, for me, it's down 20%. So, but I guess this gives you an idea of how things are trending for the holidays.
Yeah, I don't mind averages for the purposes of trending, because that's basically what they are. They don't mean anything. If I'm flying out of Minneapolis and, 3/4 of the routes are a lot cheaper and a quarter are much more expensive, and I happen to be on those quarter and I want to fly on those quarter that are more expensive, the average doesn't help me a whole lot. So I think that's one of the things that's my pet peeve about averages. But from a trending perspective, that's good news. Clearly not everybody's going to go places that are more expensive or cheaper. So, but that's definitely a trend. I think part of that trend centers around the economy to some degree, and also fuel prices to some degree as well. So, and I think these are also coming off of very high highs last year. I think that's where we saw our peaks last year, according to our data. So, I think that all those things in combination are really important. I think that study also shows in some cases which day you can actually go, the day of the holiday being cheaper, avoid the Wednesday before, the Sunday after. We've talked about that before. I think it's kind of fun in general to compare cities year over year and see who's changed a bit. And I think some of that also depends on competition too. Some of these cities, like Philadelphia and Cleveland, and Philadelphia in some cases have lost some people. Cleveland actually has picked up Frontier and some more traffic from Spirit after United essentially dehubbed the city. So I think these are all trends that I think if you live in those particular areas, you have a pretty good idea of what's going on.
Well, what I find interesting is, yes, the prices have gone down, and then late last week you detected a new airfare hike.
Yeah, and we saw that airfare hike, just almost $10 round trip and again, American initiating it, but all the other airlines have to match it. We've talked about airfare hikes before, which is almost happens at least monthly, and we see an attempted airfare hike. Giving my baseball metaphor earlier in the World Series, the airlines are batting about 250 to 300, which would be a pretty good Major League Baseball batting average and getting hikes to stick. But many times they do roll back, and unfortunately, a lot of us end up buying tickets in the middle of these hiking periods after right before they actually roll back. In this particular case, Southwest jumped in right behind American, which almost guarantees that a hike is going to stick. So essentially, a hike is sort of like raising the tide, sort of like the gravitational force of the moon pulling the tides up a bit. But we still see sales. Many times these hikes don't actually change sale fares, which are temporary in nature and which only come in and go, as we've talked about a lot of times, outside of Black Friday, for example, but mostly on Tuesdays is your best time to shop in those particular cases. So so I think when it's all said and done, we're going to see for 2017 prices sort of bouncing all over the place as we head into next year. I think even the Delta executives have signaled that prices are going to be cheaper next year, at least for transatlantic travel. And I think, we're going to probably not see too much hiking going on over the next 6 months or so.
Well, that's good news. And let's jump into a question from a customer. These are always good, and this is a sort of complicated. Nancy in Virginia Beach, so that's where she lives, Virginia Beach, but she bought a ticket for LAX to Seattle on Alaska Airlines, and she said she had to cancel the ticket due to schedule changes. Now she has a credit on Alaska Airlines, which doesn't fly from the airports near her. Is there a way she can use that credit on other airlines? Otherwise, she says, obviously, it's going to go to waste.
Yeah, that's a little bit surprising. I don't know the exact ruling on if they actually change the schedule. I think there's sort of if they change it within a few minutes, you can actually, redo your ticket. But if it's more than some, they should refund the entire value of the ticket. It's going to be tough for her to actually use a credit on Alaska, because it actually has to be on her name. So that's the only way those credits work. You can't actually transfer that. I don't know if she actually got a actual credit for the airline that she can use all the time, or if it's basically one of these things where it's actually tied to her ticket. I don't think that the question that I saw was very clear on that, because credit can mean a couple different things, apparently. But Alaska is a little bit different than most. They have sort of a different change fee than the legacy airlines. If you do something outside of 60 days of travel, typically the change fee is $125. Inside of 60 days, it's $125. Outside, it's actually free, more like Southwest, for example. So I think they're a little bit different. JetBlue is different. The legacy airlines are typically $200 for their change fee domestic, $300 for international. Again, Southwest being the obvious difference there, because they have no change fee. And remember, Ann, we've talked about this before in previous podcasts, that's billions of dollars in the change fee alone for folks. To me, and we've discussed how I think that that's the most onerous fee. So I'm not positive where she actually has a credit on her credit card, or she actually has to buy a ticket in the Alaska name. If they change her flight schedule, I'm pretty sure she can request a full refund. Now, changes occur all the time. Sometimes they're only 1 or 2 minutes of changes or something. Right. In that case, she wouldn't be able to get a full refund request, for example. But these rules, and I'm having trouble keeping up with all sort of the activist rules that have been coming out from the Department of Transportation on all these changes to, seat fees, and when they actually are going to have to allow kids to sit with their parents, at least one parent, make sure they can sit together and accommodate them without any fee, for example. And so I'd have to look a little bit deeper into that. But depending on which one it is, whether or not she actually had a very slight change in the schedule and had to go ahead and cancel that, and she has basically in that case, she'd have a full credit she can use in 10 or 11 months that's actually tied to her name and a ticket number that she'd have to use to buy another ticket, or if she actually got a credit from the airlines, which would have been a full refund.
Well, it's not clear to me if Nancy called up Alaska and sort of threw herself on their mercy. Would you recommend trying that?
Yeah, I think also Alaska has a relationship with Delta on many routes. I know they compete pretty heavily in
Yeah.
Seattle, but they also have a code share agreement on many routes. You might be able to use it on that code share pathway. You also have Alaska about to merge with the Virgin America, depending on what happens with the antitrust
Hmm.
stuff, which actually is a little bit delayed on being announced. So that might be an option as well. So I think she has a couple other options in the code sharing area where she might be able to use that ticket if it's tied to Alaska directly.
And as sometimes, it never hurts to ask. Don't expect much of anything, and you won't be disappointed. But go ahead and ask. You might be surprised.
Yeah, so and just remember, if it's tied to a ticket, it has to be on your same name, and it only has a limited lifetime, typically just under a year.
Let's talk eventurists. We have our
Sure.
event of the week is the Zimbabwe Vic Falls concert, which I'm going to guess is Victoria Falls, right?
Yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
this whole big carnival thing, and it's uh, at Vic Falls Primary School, which sounds like little kind of stuff, but it's a big deal. It's first of all, I have heard that Victoria Falls is just amazing, just a beautiful, beautiful thing, and this is for New Year's festival. So wow, it'd be like an otherworldly experience to greet the new year there, I would imagine.
Yeah, it'd be one of these once in a lifetime sort of events, right? And as you noted, right there, as we turn into 2017 next year, the tickets aren't very expensive. It looks like they're under $100, and you have
Mhm.
single day passes and a variety of others. I was actually browsing through the photos of this particular event. It looks like they've had some pretty large crowds. I know it says it's at the primary school. I think that's probably code for. You can just be crazy because you can go back and start acting like you were 7 years old again. But there's a lot of interesting photos there, lots of bands, fire breathing entertainers, a pretty cool set of pictures. So go check that out on our Adventurist blog. I actually wish I could get away, over New Year's. It's tough for me right now, but I'm going to be checking out some of these things in the coming years. And I love the fact that we actually update all these events each year with any of the new details that are coming out. So check that out. Several hundred of them that you can browse through. Actually, close to 300 now, at different places around the world. So if you sort of are wondering and want an idea of a place and to add on to your trip and tie that into with some cheap airfare, just come check out the Adventurous blog. You can also download the native app on both the Apple App Store as well as the Google Play Store if you're on Android.
I see the best reason to go to this Zimbabwe carnival, elephant rides.
That is something you don't do every day. So I'm in for definite elephant ride. So the other thing too, I would note, you can check all of our podcasts out. We have older ones, and we talk all about all sorts of travel topics. Sometimes in the news, sometimes about finding cheap airfare and all the different things. So check us out there. You can also pick up the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. So check that out. Be sure to download the native app and sign up for alerts. That's the best way to save money. So if you come to the site, sign up for alerts. We'll send you a note whenever prices drop. Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
thanks, Rick.